Hello and welcome to Founder Focus with Neeti Sharma of Teamlease Digital. Teamlease has been a pioneer in online education, especially at a time when education is booming and yet edtech has been in question ever since 2021. Keeping the controversies aside, we really want to focus on how Neeti has helmed Teamlease to be one of the top online aggregators of sorts, taking universities to global students, not just Indian ones, making online education affordable, accessible, even for apprenticeship or for people who have left education and started their jobs but still want to keep upskilling. And like we'll also get insights into why upskilling is still important, why it is still relevant. So thank you so much, Neeti, for joining us. And my first question will be what like what was the idea behind Teamlease? Like I understand the company is decades old, like at least 2 decades old. So, I mean, how is it that you conceptualized something with like just in the dot-com era that you kind of envisioned it to gain success at this level?
Yeah, hi Gauri, and thank you so much for having me here. So Teamlease, you're right, is about a 23-24-year-old organization. We started as a pure staffing company, and when we started way back in 2002, 2003, we were the only formal Indian staffing company. And since then, obviously, the industry has grown a lot, has matured. I think people understand nationally what is contract staffing about, how it helps them, and how it enables them to bring in people, bring in workforce to start with, and then over a period of time, if that employee works well, some of them actually get absorbed by the customer, and some of them actually go to some other entities. But our thought of team leads and staffing has purely been, and if you see our mission and our motto is always putting India to work, where we wanted to actually bring in the employer demand and the right job seeker onto the same platform, enable and ensure that the job seeker has the right counseling, handholding skill set, and thereon get the right job. So that's really what we started to be. Of course, over the last 2 to 2.5 decades, we have changed tracks. We have expanded our horizons. So today we don't just give employment or just don't do a demand supply match, but we also do a lot of hand holding. We also do a lot of learning, upskilling, reskilling, and as well as new skilling, because a lot of job seekers who enter the labor market for the first time are not employable. So we start from there, and you mentioned the term apprenticeship. So we give them work integrated learning programs or degree apprenticeships, as we term them, which is an integration of what the universities are offering, what the employers are looking for in terms of on the job training, and what the learner himself or herself is looking for, which is basically sustainable education for getting into higher education, and thereon becoming employable and get decent wage employment. So that's really what we do. You did mention about the edtech piece as well. At Teamlease EdTech, we bring in universities, our partner universities, and we become an OPM or an online program manager, where we provide technology platforms, curriculum, industry connects, and a lot more. So our intent really, Gauri, as Teamlease is, like I said, putting India to work, but to ensure that the right job seeker has the right job, and the right industry or the right organization gets the right candidate.
Actually very helpful, but I also want to understand, because this is a founders focus segment, what are your personal ideals and how did this journey, I mean, how in this journey you could connect them and propel forward not just, I mean, the brand, but also your position into the entire edtech space or into the digital apprenticeship space, because education is evolving fast and it will never lose sheen. We have COVID, we don't have COVID. Obviously, we understand that some of the brands actually leveraged the digital transformation better at that time,
Yeah.
but you've still been
Yeah.
able to sustain that when some people could not do that. So, how did your personal journey kind of converge with this journey?
Yes, one thing that we all learned early on in team lease is that as an organization, and like all startups do, we have to be frugal with capital. And to be able to sustain for tomorrow, you have to survive today. So I think those are certain things that we carried on, we continue to carry on, even right now as we speak. So as leaders in the industry or as leaders in the organization, we have to ensure that not only do we use frugality as a principle for, I think we did that for a fairly long time, but we also ensure that our teams are enabled, are empowered enough to drive their particular goals and their KRAs. We give them all the right resources, but at the same time, I think governance is something that we keep, extremely high stead, because without governance, and something that at Teamlease we very clearly defined, saying we don't want to be on the wrong side of the law, even if it's gray, right? We obviously want it to be absolutely clear. Whatever we commit to our customers, we deliver straightforward. There is nothing else that we want to work on or focus on. So as founders, as leaders, I think we've very clearly defined, saying a, our commitment to our customers is important. Whatever we commit, we deliver. B, be frugal with capital. Survive today so that you can sustain in the long run. Yeah, so I think those are a couple of things that we've always kept in mind and ensured that we continue to follow those principles and those guidelines, even as we speak.
And one thing that I always wondered was that, employment also has seen its fair shares of ups and downs. We've been through an environment where there was like stagnation. People were working in companies for decades. Now you're facing the challenge of people hopping companies probably every 3 to 6 months. And then there are upskilling required. Then people are probably overskilled or underskilled for the skills of today. Obviously, when it comes to AI, no skill is enough, and there is also an age gap, and there are apprehensions. Like there's just a lot of things going on. So not just speculating, I want to know from you, because you are seeing this on a daily basis. So how has the job market of today evolved, comparing to something of the 2010s or the 2000s? So if you can just do a comparative analysis for our listeners.
So lots has changed, right? I mean, today there are new jobs getting created every single year or every few months. This was something that was not happening till at least a decade ago. We could define saying this is my roadmap, this is my career path, these are the skills I need, and here is where I want to go. But today, the AI jobs that exist today, we didn't even envision 2 years ago, 3 years ago, they're going to come in, right? At the same time, there are lots of jobs that are probably being taken away due to digitalization and automation, but newer jobs are getting created on the go. What this translates to is that there are new skill sets required by employers every single day, right? So employees, existing workforce, need to continue upskilling themselves to stay relevant. They have to be agile and ensure that the moment there's a new technology, so let me just say in the tech space, right? As long as there are newer technologies coming in, I have to learn, I have to upskill, and I have to remain relevant to not just today's requirement or also tomorrow's requirement to retain my job. But for what happens to the lot of candidates or lot of job seekers who are entering the labor market, a lot of students who are completing engineering or science or commerce or arts undergraduation, for them defining a role which is probably going to be 5 years down the line, I don't see too much of visibility. But I think what employers look for is not just about being deployable right away as soon as they pass college, but they look for basic attitudinal skills, behavioral skills, basic comprehension skills. So if I'm still talking tech, the engineers who pass out, employers are looking for analytical skills, research skills, thinking ability, working collaboratively, right? And the attitude to continuously upskill and learn on the go. So not only are new jobs getting created and new roles getting created, but new skill sets are also required. And this is happening a lot more frequently than what it used to happen a decade ago. Probably 2, 3 decades ago, it was all okay. I would probably start as at one point, let's say, an accountant. and thereon I'll probably get to becoming, a senior accountant, and then the career path goes upward. But today, whether it is the retail industry, the e-commerce, hospitality, banking, financial, IT, every industry is going through churns. We had again, till 5 years ago, had not visualized the number of jobs an e-commerce industry would create. But today, those jobs are very high in demand. They pay well, and the volumes are also extremely high. So things are changing more rapidly. Skill sets are also being redefined. And the only thing that I can tell everyone who's probably looking at taking employment or staying in a job is to continuously upskill them to stay relevant to today's requirement.
On that, I want to ask you like five top skills that every fresher out there needs to develop outside their college or outside their schools or probably outside their workspace, which will make them relevant. You can also take it up to 10, but like, what are these essential skills that they cannot do without? Because, today I just met somebody in July who said that, I'm an Infosys and I can write my emails with chat gpt, so I really don't need that kind of a skill. Like, I can use an AI editor, though I do need a little bit of skill there. And AI cannot just replace, like today only I was reading an article about how Canva proposes that they can remove entire creative teams, but then that's not the case actually, because you do need that kind of a slow growth of sorts. But still, I mean, seeing the whole trajectory, seeing this whole environment, what are some skills that you feel that AI cannot replace probably, and these skills are not gonna go out of fashion?
Yeah, so you're right. I think there are some technical skills or certain capabilities, I would not even call them skills, certain capabilities that probably technology can replace. And today it's AI, tomorrow it could be something else. To just take your example, when somebody said, hey, you know what, I can write an email using GPT, but what are the prompts you're going to give to GPT to ensure that you get the right email with your writing capability, your understanding, your tonality, right? I think those are skill sets that as individuals we obviously are looking at upskilling ourselves or learning new skills. So yes, a lot of those probably maybe English language in that sense, as a skill set may not remain that much in demand, but what are you going to feed to an AI engine is something which is definitely going to continue to stay in existence. But apart from, I think, AI skills, what I would like to call out, Tori, is really there are obviously technical skills, right? Today we're talking about cloud and we're talking about data being on a cloud, which clearly defines saying the kind of jobs or volume jobs that are getting created today is around data. So which means data analysis, or an data analyst, data security, and everything related to data. And then there's of course cloud, which means cloud computing, analytics, cyber security. Lots of jobs getting created on these lines. And you cannot have technology replace a human intelligence for any of these roles. So obviously on the tech skills, these are the top skills. But if I talk about behavioral skills, or soft skills, or essential skills as we call them, and like I called out earlier, employers are not looking at freshers to come in with everything ready made and saying, I hire you today, you get into projects tomorrow, and from the third day you start becoming billable for me. That's really not what employers are looking for. And sustainability of skills, which are the essential skills, are very important, right? Whether it's communication, whether it's creativity, we're talking about critical thinking, we're talking about learnability, and of course, we're talking about innovation, research mindset, entrepreneurial mindset, complex problem solving skills, leadership skills, collaborative skills. So there's a lot of those actually that obviously technology will not, replace. And these skills will continue for a fairly long time. I mean, there's no way that a good attitude can be replaced by anything else for any role in the world, right?
That
or
makes
or
so
the
much
ability.
sense. That makes so much sense because And one thing that I really wonder now in this scape is where you talk about the churn. I've observed that there are some companies which hire, train, and deploy. They
Yeah.
understand that the child who's coming in is like a raw manufactured product, and we need to chisel it according to our company. Like, I, in my first job, realized that whatever I'd learned, it's not enough. Like in this new field, wherever I'm stepping, be it marketing, be it being a publicist, be it a journalist, like I have to learn the codes from the scratch. Like I do have
Yeah.
some skills which can help me, but then chiseling me according to my job is something that will happen at my like 10th role or 20th role also, like whenever I take that up. And because of this, because the companies are investing in those resource, they are basically helping them become the versions that they want, but then the people are hopping probably after a year or after 2 years. And then is when, like, I heard in a journalism organization, they said that why do we train a digital desk when we can train AI to write the same press release? The AI will not leave us. So here is where
Yeah.
I want to ask you, that is like, what is the gap here, and like, can there be a stop at the attrition? Attrition was a problem in 2021. There was like the time of the great resignation. Then there was a time of the great layoffs also, and then now we're at a very pesky situation that it's a mix of both. And neither companies know how much we should invest in people, neither people know how much we should get or how much we're entitled to. So, I mean, there's a mismatch in expectations. So, because you are kind of a glue between the industries, like basically the recruiters and the ones being recruited, what is your take? And how do you also at a personal level put your work ethics into the dynamic for the younger generation of today, like not just people who work under you, but also the people who are going to listen to you? Because I personally feel that today's youth is very misguided. Like whatever they had come in with, whatever their parents told them, plus whatever they're seeing their seniors do, plus whatever they want to do, is just on completely different tangents.
Yeah. So you're right. I think there is a lot of mismatch between what a new job seeker comes with or an expectation and what the employers are looking for. And I think it is purely because we don't set expectations right on both ends much before the job seekers entering the labor market, right? We are also talking about, institutions, education institutions counseling students and telling them the right or the reality of workplace rather than saying, hey, you know what, everything's going to be rosy, you'll get a fancy office, air conditioned, you don't have to rough it out. Now that you are an engineering graduate or you've done a MBA or you've done some graduation, everything's going to be hunky dory, right? That's not the case. Things are changing on a continuous basis. Every day is a new day. Every organization is a different organization. So I would say that the first responsibility of guiding the students and providing them handholding and counseling resides with the education institutes because they spend the maximum time with the students before they hit the labor market. Having said that, I think career counseling and guidance is very important, but also being able to tell the job seeker all possible opportunities that exist for him and her. Unfortunately, in most cities in our country and in for most education institutes, many job seekers are not even aware of all the opportunities that they can actually avail of and the kind of career paths they can build. I mean, today or traditionally everyone thinks of your medical professional or an engineering professional as the profession to improve your lifestyle and you earn money and get into nice organizations. But today there are lots of other organizations. I mean, every company is a tech company. Every company is looking at digitalization and automation. Every industry is actually hiring skill sets which they've never hired in the past. So in my view, I mean, you asked me what I do personally. I, of course, do a lot of handholding and career guidance and counseling to the students. And of course, I also work very closely with many startups to tell them about reality on what are the kind of skills and what kind of job seekers they will get and how do they need to work with them to ensure that they are ready for work. rather than saying that, hey, you know what, I'm not getting talent, let me start paying money. And we know that over the last few years, startups had paid abnormally high salaries to people in the industry, which in a way backfired not just for them, but even the job seekers. Because
Very
now
true,
when the
and you bring up startups, one name that cannot leave my conscience is Adit Palicha and Keval Vora. These 22-year-olds give us complex that what are we doing wrong in life? And today only he gave an interview where he said that, people double my age are reporting to me. So when we
yeah,
see Misho, there's 32-year-old Vidit Atre, like mostly you see all the entrepreneurs today, be it like the star entrepreneurs like Piyush Bansal or Namita, like they're all under 50, under 40, and like Dipinder Goyal
right,
or Albinder Dinsar, like they're just kind of smashing the whole game, and we have female entrepreneurs as well, male entrepreneurs as well. We have couples who are helming companies. So, this is a whole spread dynamic. Now, here is where I want to understand, there was a time when a certain founder of a very hotshot space was paying people, but then the output was not coming. People were conning the system. So what do you feel like? You've said that money cannot buy people, but often you see that in some early stage startups or some even the common practice startups, the hustle culture is promoted, or the operations of HR are neglected. I recently had a word with the founder of Marching Sheep, and she said that posh as a law we feel is present everywhere, but it was not present in RG Car Hospital where the whole gang rape incident happened. So what are these guidelines, if you have to be a consultant for them, if you have to handhold them in terms of employment or in terms of upskilling, what are these things that you want these young crop of entrepreneurs to keep in mind? Because I think half of the things you've learned with the experience, but these boys, these girls are just coming in with the ammunition, with the money also, though
right,
this time the pitch decks are very revised. If you see Zepto's growth, when the edtech slump had come in, they had revised their pitch decks, but today every 6 months they're raising money and there's a lot of questions and everything, but that's a different story. I want to understand from the whole startup space, to compete with the doyens of like, because a Blinkit or a Swiggy or a Zepto is competing with a giant like an Amazon and Flipkart with heavy international pockets. So obviously the perks of an MNC and the perks of a startup are different. Startup, I personally feel it's like a sprint, and MNCs are more like a marathon. So, like, I just want to understand your whole understanding here. And like, if suppose I am a young founder of today, so what is your advice to me in terms of employee engagement, in terms of hiring, in terms of running my company of sorts?
yeah. So, you I think gave a very good analogy, right? I mean, startups are sprint, but I think a lot of founders today are not in creating a company, as a sprint. They actually want to make it like a large institution. And for that, I think something that whichever founder that I have worked with, I tell them very clearly that, look, if you have to create a large scale company, if you're hiring thousands and thousands of, job seekers, then there are certain things that you will have to build as a culture of the organization. You will have to define, your principles and your values, which should get translated to even the lowest person or the person who's on the field in your organization, because unless you have those guiding principles, you could go anywhere. And today, I mean, you mentioned some of the greatest startups that have come up in India, and I think everyone's getting their funding done. I mean, you mentioned, you mentioned Zepto, and you mentioned Blinkit, and there's so many others in the industry today. I mean, there's so many tech research startups that are there. I sit in Bangalore, and it's not just a tech. Startup capital, but it's also a research capital, it looks like
Like,
right
sorry
now.
for like butting in here, but I read so many memes about Bangalore that every employee out there has a pitch deck in their pocket. It's like so thriving
Yeah,
as a startup
and
space.
it's true. It's actually true. It's ironic that, and there's so many great ideas, right? But then, as entrepreneurs, and I mean, as startup entrepreneurs, we have to realize that not just a product or an idea can actually help us scale and make it, like another unicorn or a sunicorn. But I think that along with that, creating an organization, creating an organization with values, creating certain principles and guidelines for your organization, and keeping your team together is very, very important. Because when you've just started a company, there's just so many things that are happening that founders probably don't get time to spend on many other things, right? I have to go out, I have to get capital, I have to ensure, and I have to pay salaries. There's just so much happening. My product has to get developed, my GTM has to get defined. So founders, and not just founders, the founding team in a way does a lot more than what they're supposed to do. But collectively, the founder has to get the right people under him or her, so that there's cognitive diversity in the team. And secondly, to ensure that this team stays with them, and to ensure that there are certain guiding principles of the organization that everyone around the organization kind of follows. I think those are things which are very critical for any organization success, and not just a startup success.
No, absolutely. And I want to do address this notion. I mean, there's a recent spat that we're having with Canada. And I know so many people who've migrated like a decade ago. Like, or I see, because I teach in a school as well. So I see that kids have it all planned out. Yeah, our bua or our masi or our, like some relative stays there, and we'll just go and study there, and we'll probably find a job, and it'll be like a better living standard. But recently, a
Yeah.
friend connected with me and they told me to find me a job in India because they were just not making the cut. Like if they were earning 3 lakhs there, they were spending 4 lakhs on the economy. Plus, there is just so much of diplomatic tension. There's so much of racism. We used to have news of killings. Now we have these banters that are just coming up, and it's an unfortunate state. So I mean, I want to understand from your perspective, if and I personally feel like if I can just give my 2 pence on this, if I had a child today or if I had a younger sibling and they would say कि मुझे Canada जाना है, I would say India में क्या कमी है? All the startups are coming to India. Like Grow recently, they shifted domicile, and PhonePe shifted domicile from Singapore to India. They Grow did from US to India. Everybody's coming to India, be it the semiconductor space, be it any other space for that matter. I want to understand from you, is the West losing sheen? Is the world actually coming to India? Or do you see this as a balanced picture that, okay, today this is happening, but tomorrow again, the people who want to go out and hone their skills, because, there have been faults in India's infrastructure. Otherwise, we would have a Sundar Pichai running a Google in India. He wouldn't have to go to US for that. Same for Satya Nadella, same for MasterCard CEO. So I want to understand from you, where is the where is the future of the youth today when it comes to diplomatic tensions or probably opportunities?
Yeah. So obviously India has a lot of potential, a lot of growth potential, right? And but we also know that lot of job seekers, lot of students actually migrate early on to other countries, and Canada is just one amongst them. But we've also got the US, we've got a lot of European countries. Now we have a lot of Eastern European countries also, where students are going for education. So I think that will continue. I don't see that coming down. But to your point, yes, reverse migration is a phenomena that is continuing to happen right now, and probably a little more than what it used to be about 5 6 years ago. And it's purely because of the global economy, the way things are going across in these countries. People believe that there is an employment opportunity in India, which probably they don't have in those countries, and which is why they're looking at, or rather willing to come back to India, because a lot of Indians, I mean, this is home, closer to family, closer to aging parents, have the right ecosystem, have the right support system. So why not, right? And of course, our infrastructure, our medical infrastructure actually has improved leaps and bounds. A number of global hospitals that we have, state of the art facilities, international schools. So I think families are willing to look at moving back to India, but in certain pockets and in certain places, it's not across the country. To your point about will this continue? I see that there will be a combination. Students will go to other countries and they'll continue to study. because there's only that much that as an Indian education infrastructure we are able to provide to our students. The quality of education in some of the older institutes globally, I think, by far exceeds what we are doing. In fact, now, right now, at least the new education policy that we are adopting will make it a lot more flexible, will make it a lot more open, but it will take a couple of years for it to stabilize, get executed, and then the students going through the entire system to ensure that they learn a lot better. So that will continue. I think whatever jobs people get in other countries, whatever little that's happening at the moment, I think in the next couple of years, when the economic changes in these countries, newer jobs will get created. But a lot will depend on the foreign policy and the migrant policy that these countries define. I mean, US is up for elections next month, and we know that certain policies may get changed. That will impact, job seekers going from India to the US, and which would mean that they either look at diversifying to other countries or continue to stay in India and and get a job. But I think as youngsters, as first time job seekers, many may still want to go to other countries, get the exposure, and maybe at some point want to come back. So there's nothing wrong in that, because they're bringing in a good learning, they're bringing in a good experience, which they will put back into our country, which is fantastic for us, because that's something, that's an environment we would love to create on an ongoing basis and learn from everyone's experiences, which is diverse in nature and not just one way.
And I also want to understand from you, this is the last question before we end this. What are the five fields where you think, which are hot fields, which are so, so important for people to be able to grow today?
When you say fields, as in skill sets or roles or industries?
Yes, industries and proper roles also you can shed light on.
Sure. So in terms of industries, we see growth clearly happening in, the BFSI industry. There is pharma, life science industry that is growing. There is obviously the tech space, and in tech specifically, data security, data and cloud are two areas which will continue to grow. Manufacturing and manufacturing tech is again an area which is growing really rapidly, and lots of new changes happening, and the latest is the semiconductor industry. So there's a lot happening there. I would also like to mention here that while as an India story, especially for global organizations, earlier we were purely a low cost ecosystem. Right now that ecosystem is changing. We are actually bringing a lot of value, which is why a lot of R&D companies have come up in India, and they're hiring talent so that a lot of global R&D can start moving to India. So that's the other piece which I see, that a lot of growth is happening. Skill sets, I think we've touched upon in the past as well. Like I said, the technical skill sets, there are domain skills, and then there's a set of essential or soft skills that every employer is very keen to look at when he or she is hiring job seekers, not just first time or freshers, but even lateral, and leadership hiring. People do look at technology, domain, and the behavioral skills as a combination. No one is looking at purely just tech skills or domain skills. Everyone is moving towards composite skill sets, and that's really the way to the future.
That's actually very insightful, Neeti. Thank you so much for this conversation today. I'm sure our listeners will gain a lot from it. And I hope to keep abreast with whatever is happening at Teamlease Digital, whatever new is happening, and your insights on more developments that are happening in this space. Thank you so much once again.
Pleasure, Gauri. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye bye.